I've opened up Movavi, and when you open it, it's going to automatically give you a new project. So the first thing that you're going to notice is that over here you've got 3 tracks. You've got a T for title track, you have a video track, and you have an audio track. And you can add more of all 3 of those things from this little menu right here. This guy right here lets you import, shows you what you've got in your media bin, gives you some other things, effects, backgrounds, music and videos. We won't be using those, but we will use the media bin to put all of our files in. This gives you effects or filters. Those are transitions. These are titles. Those are stickers, and these are the tools that you use for your editing. So we are not going to use every one of those things, but Movavi is a really easy program to navigate and to move around in, and it's pretty user-friendly, and on their website they have a lot of tutorials to help you get started. Okay, so the first thing that we are going to do is add a background. So they have a variety of backgrounds that you can use. You can also use a photograph or something else that you import, an image that you import. I typically use just black, and you're going to want to grab the end of that and expand it so that you won't be able to add videos beyond where your background is. So I'm going to make my scale a little bit smaller so that I can see how far I'm extending this. So we'll take it to about 4 minutes, which ought to be more than enough time. Okay, so the next thing that I'm going to do before I even begin adding my videos is I'm going to go ahead and create a title. So they have a variety of titles that you can choose from. And so I'm going to use this guy, and basically I'm just going to grab it and I'm going to drag it down to the beginning. And what it's going to do is give you the option of typing in whatever you want, expanding those fields. I'm going to make that field a little bit bigger, and I'm going to use this to type in the title of my song, What a Fellowship. And then down here, I'm going to write you can put obviously anything you want in there. And you have the opportunity to change the font, to change the color, to change any of those things that you want. Okay, so titles usually last about 6 seconds. So that's what the default is. If you want it to be longer or shorter, you can adjust that by grabbing the end of that and moving it shorter or longer, okay? So we're going to go back to the little folder, and we're going to go to the media bin, and I'm going to go ahead and dump into the media bin all of my video clips and my audio soundtrack. So I've already got all of my video clips in a folder. So I'm going to grab them all at once. Okay, so I drag and dropped all of my files, all my video files over into my media bin. So now I'm going to drag my soundtrack over. So I'm just going to grab it and drop it in. Get rid of those guys. Okay, so I have a title, I have my background, and now I'm going to go ahead and drag my soundtrack down to my soundtrack line. Now, I'm not really going to want the soundtrack to start with a bunch of blank space, so I'm going to just drag this pointer so that the music starts pretty close to right after the title ends. And the titles you can, in this window over here, you can preview them. They'll show you what they look like. and you can pick from there. So that's the one that I've chosen. They've just got a random background over there. Okay, so we've chosen this one, and if we put our cursor at the beginning and hit the space bar, we can see that preview. Okay, and then soundtrack's gonna start playing. Okay, so now we are ready to start inputting our media files. I go back to my little folder, I go to my media bin. Now, when you've got a virtual choir that has a lot of people, one of the things that you have to be careful of is making sure that you get everybody in there. So I tend to just be really methodical and start at the top and get everybody in before I start to manipulate things. For this virtual choir, I'm planning on having everybody on the screen the entire time, including the conductor. A little bit later, I'll show you how to do a couple of variations on that, so you have some idea about how to do that differently if you want to. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a video track. Then I'm going to take my first person and I'm going to line her up and add her. And immediately I'm going to, it's going to give you the overlay menu, and I'm going to click on picture in picture. This is what makes it possible to have multiple people in your virtual choir. So I'm going to make her smaller, and I can't really worry about my spacing until I kind of get everybody in there, but I'm going to make her smaller, and I'm going to move her to the far corner. She's going to need to be smaller than that. Okay, now I can see that I've got a lot of space here. I tend to do this for each person as we go. I can see from her wave file, from her audio, where she starts singing, and I want to mark that on our soundtrack. So I'm going to play, I suspect the singing starts right here where this little spike is, but I want to just make sure of that. Yep. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to be sure I've highlighted my audio track, and I'm going to move my pointer to where the singing begins, and I'm going to get this little flag, and I'm going to add a marker to that spot, and I'm going to say singing begins. Now this one is going to be a little bit easier than some, just because everybody's in all at the same time. So I'm going to want, I'm going to make her track go to just a little bit before the singing begins, and then I'm going to line up her vocals with the vocals of the track. And I'm going to go ahead and just test that and make sure that it lines up appropriately, because you can't always trust the audio wave. Okay, she's a little bit off, and I'm going to adjust it just a teeny bit. And you can always make it your scale bigger so you have a little bit better view. It looks like this part of the wave is not completely where she really starts going. Okay, so we're going to say that's the deal. And so she's set. Now, one of the things that I don't like about Movavi is that once you start getting a whole bunch of files, you have to go up and down to see this this audio track, which is why I put my little marker here. It'll help us line things up. Now, we are not going to keep any of the audio from the videos. We're going to delete those tracks, but I need it for my lining up. So I'm going to add another video track, go back to my media bin, and I'm going to add my next person. Okay. I can see quite easily where he starts singing. So I'm going to take his to just before that, and then I'm going to drag it. I'm going to line up the singing with my pointer. So when I stick my cursor on that pointer, it all ought to line up really nicely. Now, you may want your entry points to be lined up really tight, or you may want people to kind of work their way in. So when I click on his video track, I can go to overlay, and I'm going to click on picture in picture. I'm going to make him small, and I'm going to move him up here somewhere. And if you notice, the black part is transparent, so I could make him like that. It makes him awfully small. So let's do something else. We're going to keep him just like that for a second and go over here to crop and balance. And instead of using the long version, the vertical version that he's given me on this video, I'm going to keep really his head and shoulders and make that what's in the frame. So let's hit apply, and oh, look what a difference that makes. So then if I go back to overlay, then I can adjust the picture in picture. That makes him look way more in sync with her. Okay, so let's add another video file, video track. Go back to our media bin. We'll add another person. Now, once again, we're going to hit picture in picture, which is going to give us the chance to make him small, drag him up. I'm going to adjust his audio file, audio entry point. Now you do want to be careful. Again, I'm going to check my cursor. So see, I'm starting to get a little bit off. So I'm going to drag this guy over just a little bit more. It's real easy to get off by enough to make a difference. So I want to check it as I go. Movavi's pretty sensitive, which can be annoying, but it's so easy to use that I'll put up with a lot of things. Okay, that's looking better. Okay. One of the things that happens, do you see how I've got two files in this one video track? There's nothing wrong with that. It's slightly annoying, but I can just add another thing over here into that video track. The Movavi does give you a little green check if you've already used them, so that's helpful in making sure you haven't left anybody out. So same thing, I'm going to line up her track, I'm going to shrink it to the audio. Right, and we're going to go to overlay, picture in picture, make her smaller and move her over. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and since you kind of got a hang of that, I'm going to go ahead and do our conducting track because I'm going to match him up differently. So let me find the conductor. Here's my conductor track. And I'm going to match that up with the audio track, and instead of with where the singing begins. So I need to be able to see my video track or my audio track. Move my pointer to the very beginning of the music. That looks pretty close. Now if I push play right here before we've gotten into the vocal videos, we'll be able to tell whether we're in sync or not. We can also tell by looking at the conductor's hands. So let's see if we're in sync. Okay, so we are in sync with the music. The singers are not in sync. So let's try to make sure that we do that before we get too far gone. Okay, so here's my spot. Let's move her out just a little. One of the other things that annoys me about Movavi is that the cursor won't stay put. But look, if you expand it out, you can really see where that beginning of that audio file needs to be. And it needs to be there. And he needs to be there. I'm going to adjust the length of his. Let's see who else we've got. We need to adjust her out just a little bit. And we need to adjust him in just a little bit. I have found that if I don't sync as I go, it becomes really hard. Let's see if we're in any better shape. And let's look at our audio soundtrack and our conductor soundtrack. I'm going to move him. I have found that if you click right where the pointer is, when you start to move it, then it doesn't move. So let's see how that goes. Okay, that's better. Okay, so for the conductor track, I still need to do the overlay, picture in picture. And I'm gonna make his track a little bit different. I can't see where everybody else is till I get to where their tracks are in the mix. So I'm gonna put him kind of smack dab in the middle. And if you see these green lines, that will tell you that you're on the center. There we go. We're dead center when we see both green lines. Okay? All right. I'm going to go ahead and place some other people and get right back to you. So I have placed all of the videos from my media bin into the program, and simply by adding a video track and then dragging and dropping it down, all I've done so far is to line them up by the audio so that their mouths are moving at the same time, and to move them around so that I could get things to fit in a pleasant arrangement. The main way that I do that, I'll just remind you, is you click on whatever track you want to mess with, and then you go over here to the tools, and overlay is the one that lets you move that picture around, so I can grab it and move it wherever I want to. And crop and rotate is the tool that lets you make the picture wider, make it taller, and I use this in order to make it fit. So I make my adjustments however I want to, and then I hit apply, and then I can see if it filled the space the way that I wanted it to. All right, so we're looking pretty good. So let's take a look at the videos so far so we have a sense of what needs to happen next. So we've got our title, we've got our soundtrack, and we still have all the video tracks attached, and I use them in order to make sure that I can line things up correctly. It's really, really difficult. If somebody's mouth isn't moving in the right place, it's really difficult to do that, to move them by looking at the video. All right, so I'm just gonna push play and we'll watch a little bit of it and see how it looks. So by and large, we're doing pretty okay. One of the things that is not the most pleasant in a video like this is for everybody just to pop in. And so what I want to do is to do a fade in and a fade out. And the way that I do that, I can do it one of two ways. One, I can click on each individual track, and when it's highlighted yellow, I can click on these little three lines, which are the clip properties. And that gives me volume, which we aren't going to even do anything about, and some other tools. And I'm going to give it a 1 second fade in and a 1 second fade out. Okay? Now, I could do that for each individual track, or I can just put my little mouse pointer on the side, and I can highlight all of these video tracks at once. And once I have them all highlighted, I can do the same thing. Obviously, that's going to save you quite a bit of time. Okay, the next thing I want to fix is at the very beginning, when we have the conductor start, I have him in the position where he is when the choir joins him. And so I think what I'd like to do is I'd like to make him bigger at the beginning and then have him shrink to that size when the choir joins in. So I want to pick a spot where everybody has not popped in yet. That looks pretty good. And I want to see everybody starting to fade in. I want to clip that track, and I'm going to go to the edit menu, and I'm going to hit split clip. And then what I can do is it's going to treat these two clips as if they are separate. So first I'm going to click on the first one, and I'm going to go back to my tools. Well, I want to give it a fade out too, because I clipped it. It has a fade in but not a fade out. I'm going to go back to my tools. I'm going to click overlay, and I'm going to leave it picture in picture, but I'm just going to make it bigger. So we'll start like that, and then when we go to this clip, it will be back to the smaller size. I want to be sure to give that clip a fade in. All right, so now we have this. Okay, great. That's what I was looking for. Okay, so the next piece that we need to take a look at is, one, make sure that everybody is starting at roughly the same spot. And what Movavi does is it kind of gives you, I'm going to spread this out just a little bit so we can see it, but it gives you a line, kind of a blue line, so you can kind of see when you've lined everybody up. And so that looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with that. Checking them all. Okay, that looks good. So everybody's coming in at relatively the same time. And sometimes I kind of like to have people pop in at different times, and I will deliberately not do that. But that's not what I'm going to do for this one. So the next thing I want to look at is the ending. And I'm going to want the ending to be pretty similar too. And I don't have to cut these. I just have to kind of move them. And you can see that the line turns red when you've got it right on with the one above it or with another one. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that all the way down. which means that everybody's going to be fading out at about the same time. And I'm going to want to do credits at the end. And so that'll mean I'm going smoothly in from the choir piece into credits. All right, we've got everybody lined up pretty much from beginning to end. I'm going to get it all kind of in the same window so you can see it. So everybody's lined up. We've got our title. We've changed our conductor track so that it's large at the beginning and then gets smaller. I'm going to go ahead and take my background and make it a little bit shorter because we're not going to need it to be that long. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to get rid of all of the audio tracks. So it's actually very simple to do. You can click on the whole track, or you can click on just the audio and just hit delete, delete, delete. I'm going to do that all the way down. I now have all of the audio tracks taken off except the conductor track. And I just want to check as we look through this again, I want to check and make sure that the conducting matches the music. So we're going to just do a little bit of a run through the first 30 seconds of the song. So we've got our title. Okay, I was waiting for that cutoff. Wanted to make sure that the conducting track was with the soundtrack, and it looks great. So I'm gonna click on the soundtrack, and on our three little lines here, which is the clip properties, I've got a volume button, and I'm gonna go ahead and pump up the volume on this. Because by the time you've translated all the times, you want to be sure that you have enough sound when you get it on YouTube or when you show it in worship. So I like to bump up the sound. So I want to give let's hear the end and make sure that we've got some good sound on that. So we've got this is about the last 15 seconds. Okay, I'm actually going to back that off just a little bit because there was a little bit of distortion. So I'm going to put it about 150. And let's say that you need to make some other changes to the audio. You have some audio editing capabilities here. You've got an equalizer where you can actually change some of that. You've got noise removal. Be careful using this because it will distort your track. And you've got some audio effects, and you can add something if you want. Not usually for a virtual choir, you're going to want that. And I don't use beat detection. It's not super helpful to me, but there are some audio editing things that you can do. The only thing that I do occasionally is with the equalizer. Sometimes I will change the preset to something like voice enhancement or music enhancement. And then, so let's listen and see if that makes a difference.
Leaning
Okay, that actually made it clearer. I like that. So I'm going to leave that on. So we have now basically finished completing this virtual choir, except for, whoops, don't you go anywhere, except for credits at the end. Often I like to acknowledge my singers and musicians. Instead of giving them titles personally, I put it at the end as a credit. So we're going to go back to titles, and I'm going to look for a scrolling credit. And we have them that scroll in every direction. So I'm going to take the up scrolling credit, and I'm going to put it right here, still in my title track. And I'm going to expand it a little bit. And when you double click on it, it allows you to edit it. So I'm going to highlight all of that and say special thanks to, and then okay, so one of the peculiarities of Movavi is that it doesn't allow you beyond this window. So if I have a list of quite a few singers, then what I need to do is I need to copy and paste them into this thing. So let me copy that. Okay, I've copied my singers, and I'm just going to paste them in here. I'm going to readjustify it to the center, and I'm going to make this part a little bit bigger. You can do anything you want here. You can change the font. You can do anything you want. So I'm going to hit, let's change the color. Let's make the color a nice warm yellow. Okay. And I'm going to hit apply. And so then we can see how the credits are going to look. Okay, I'm going to make this go a little bit faster. That feels a little slow to me. I'm going to start it a little sooner, and I'm going to make it just move a little bit faster. All right, let's see if that... And we've got a little bit of extra on the sound, on the soundtrack, so I'm going to be sure to shorten that track. And of course, you can add whatever information you want. If this is multiple churches, you can put what church they're from. You can add anything that you want to. You can add video editing by you. Okay, that looks good. I do want to take care of that audio track. I'm going to make that stop. I'm going to take one of the things that we do at our church is we upload our virtual choirs to a YouTube channel so that our choir members can share them on their own social media. All right, so if I was doing this for me, I would start at the beginning and listen all the way through and really take a look at people's mouths and try to make sure that everything looks really great. But I think we're set, so this is what we're going to do next. We're going to go up here to export, and we're going to say export video. And I am going to title this FPC Fellowship Choir, and it's going to go on the desktop. Now there's a temptation here to make it go to the highest quality, but the reality is that it's very little difference between good, high, and highest. And I have discovered that it takes a really long time to process if you do it on highest. So the first time for sure, do it on good. And then if you notice that you need to go back and make some changes, then you have a chance to do that. I'm going to cancel this because I want to show you one more thing. You're going to want to see this on a big screen. This guy is a little small. So let's do a playback and do a full screen preview. You'll hit the space bar to do start and stop. So one of the advantages in doing it large is that you can see if anybody's really dramatically off. And you're going to want to do that before you take away the audio tracks, which I've already done. So we're not going to fix anybody. I'm going to hit escape to get out of there. Then you're going to want to go to export your video, and you can do it to your desktop. And it'll take it a little while to process because there's a lot of video clips here. The other thing I want to say is that if your computer is having trouble playing all of this, it's really dense and it's really hard on your processor. If your computer is having trouble, really use those audio files, really line them up, and before you get rid of the audio files, go ahead and export it to your desktop and look at it. It'll process it that way, and then you can actually watch it all the way through before you lose those audio files as markers. Many computers have trouble processing this amount of video. Let's say that you need to create a video, but you don't have a large choir, or for whatever reason you don't want everybody on the screen at one time. Let's go through really quickly what that might look like. All right, so I'm going to do my background. Remember, you can use anything as your background. I like black because it just makes everything sort of look neat and clean and disappears. Okay, so we're going to do some sort of a title. Let's see. We'll do something. We'll do something fancy. All kinds. Okay, so this one is a version of I Saw the Light. Nope. We'll just make that go. This one go away. And we'll adjust just a little bit. Okay, so we'll make that our title. All right, so I'm going to, first of all, I'm going to go to my little folder here and go to my media bin, and I'm going to drag and drop my files. Okay, so I've got everybody, including my soundtrack in there, and I'm just going to drag them all over here. Okay, so I add a video file. Go ahead and add several. I'm going to get my soundtrack down in my audio. Oops, I had everybody highlighted. I'm going to undo that. It's a good thing to remember because it happens to me all the time. So I just want the audio track. Okay. Okay. Now that's quite a bit longer than our background, so I'm going to extend this a little bit so that I can get all my video files in there. Now for this song, I've got multiple musicians, and they have quite a long intro before people start singing. So I'm not going to do the whole thing for this, but I want to just give you some other options besides everybody on the screen. All right, so I'm going to start with my musicians. I've got a drummer, and I'm going to hit picture in picture, and I'm going to move him up here. And I'm going to go back to my media bin. I've got a bass player, and I'm going to hit picture in picture, and I'm going to move him up there. Back to my media bin, I have a guitar player, and I'm going to hit picture in picture. I'm going to move her over here, and I have a pianist. So I'm going to add one more video track, and bring my pianist over here. Now, my pianist actually begins before everybody else. So I'm going to line this up with the soundtrack. And my soundtrack, none of my other musicians play right at the top, so let me just see if these two are lined up. Sometimes Movavi gets a little overwhelmed and it has trouble doing what you want it to do. So don't be discouraged. It'll get there eventually. Okay, I didn't put the pianist in the overlay, the picture-in-picture, so I want to do that. And I want all the files. Now this is just a video track, not an audio track, which is a little bit problematic. Most of the time that won't be the case for you, but I'm going to show you how to mess with it. All right, so Jason, everybody else is nice and big and fills their frame. I want to take away some of this beige wall. So I'm making sure that I am clicked on that track. I am going to crop it, and I'm just going to do it. I still want the same perspective. So I'm just going to bring that corner down, and there we go. That looks much better. They look much more like they belong together. Okay, so let me listen in the soundtrack and figure out where everybody comes in. You get the gist. Everybody's a little bit off, and it's easier with vocalists. But let's say I want everybody to know who these folks are. So I'm going to go back to my titles, and I am going to pick one that is like something real simple. So I'm going to add a title track here so that I can introduce my sure those are doing right. Oh, that's a scroller. We don't want scrolling. Whoops. I don't want scrolling. I want simple text. All right. I'm going to add another title track. And I'm going to add that one. We'll put that one here. We'll change move it wherever we want it. Okay, we'll let those other two be scrollers. Okay, so you can see that you can do that however you want to. And you can add titles to everybody if you want to. So let's say that I want, through the intro, I want my musicians, and then I want 4 singers. I'm going to go ahead and add 4 tracks. And my intro stops. So the vocals start about here. And I'm going to put a little flag there. Singing. Then I'll know where to put my my next video tracks. So I'm going to go back to my media bin. I'm going to pick 4 singers, and doesn't matter where I put them initially because we want to wait till the singing starts. Okay. And I want to overlay it, picture in picture. And I'm going to put it right here. Now, I could leave those other video tracks underneath, but eventually I'm going to overload my processor again. So leaving my cursor here so I know where, I'm going to click on these tracks, and I can either compress it from the other end, but since the other end is far away, I'm going to just split it. And I'm going to go Edit, Split Track, and I'm going to delete the rest of that. Now, if I want to have everybody at the end, let's say, then I'm going to take it that direction, and then by the end I'll have all of my tracks there and I can arrange them. So I'm going to continue doing this with all of my instrumentalists. Split the track. See what I'm doing? I'm creating a situation where at the end I'm going to end up having everybody. So I can do 4 people at a time. I might want to put their a title that tells their name and the part that they're singing, or their name and what church they're from. Split this last one. Okay, so remember we're going to want to do all of our transitions. So I'm going to highlight those 4, and I'm going to go second and a second, and I'm going to highlight these 4, and I'm going to do a second and a second, and ignoring the fact that my audio tracks are off, let's see how this looks. Okay, obviously my positioning is off, but what I wanted to show you was how to do a different type of visual. Okay, let's say you don't have the right number of audio clips for 4 groups of 4. Let's say you need to do you've got 4 groups of 4, or you've got 3 groups of 4, and then you've got 2 extras, or you want to do 2 threesomes at the end. The way to do that is on your overlay, instead of saying picture in picture, you can say trio left, center, and right. You can do side by side, left and right. So that'll give you different visual groupings for your singers or for your musicians. Okay?